The thing that actually takes the most time being a music minister is not rehearsing the music. It's choosing the music that will best uplift our worship and lift our souls. We start first with the readings in the gospel. What songs are best to reinforce those messages? And which will dovetail best with the message that Pastor Ruth will emphasize in her sermon and with what she has chosen for her hymn of the day? Are we repeating a hymn too soon after we last did it? Have we gone too long without singing favorites like A Mighty Fortress or Amazing Grace? Or are we being too repetitive? Then there's the question of balance. If we're programming a song that is not well known, are we balancing that with an abundance of tunes that are popular and that people know very well? Is the tonal balance right? We can't have a service where every song is too slow or every song is fast. There's got to be a nice mix for tone and mood. Is there a good mix of major key and minor key for the same reason? Is there a good mix of songs of joy and praise where they're appropriate, or of comfort or of solemnity? What's the tone we are setting for a Sunday in the Lent season versus a Sunday in the Easter season? What's the tone we are setting for a Sunday in the Lenten season versus a Sunday in the Easter season? Is every hymn an old hymn from Luther's day or a 19th century Anglican power hymn? Is there more contemporary music from the 80s or beyond? Are we being culturally diverse? Are we including songs from the Latin and African American traditions? Are there special events like the commemoration of the Emmanuel Nine or Migrant and Refugee Sunday or Earth Day? Not to mention the secular observations. Do we consider the different choices for Mother's Day? There's a lot to consider. You can see we have this gigantic hymn planning document that the worship team uses to keep track of all this. You can see the hymns this Sunday were picked by myself, along with Bertha and Amy. Every Sunday, I and two rotating members of the worship team discuss these questions. We often have different ideas and sometimes friendly disagreements. For example, when Bertha suggested ELW 651, "Oh Praise the Gracious Power" for this week, I didn't see anything mind-blowing in the text, but worse, I found the music to be horribly awkward and bewildering. As I was listening to the hymn being sung by another church, my brain went into a total meltdown and could hardly process what I was hearing with the strangeness in rhythm and pitches. So the verse of the song is kind of strange the way it's written. Kind of weird. It sits on the 5 of the scale a lot, which is kind of strange. But on the whole, not too bizarre, right? It's the refrain that I find so bizarre. We praise you, Christ, your cross has made us one. Okay, so we've got a couple weird things going on here. Ya-da-da-da is written like a trumpet or a French horn line and not like a vocal line. In church music, we try to avoid a lot of jumps and leaps because we want the music to be easily singable by people in the congregation who don't have musical training. You want it to be all stepwise, like the middle line. And gathers in the house of faith and strangers far and near. That's all stepwise motion. This is jumpy and leapy. We praise you, Christ. The other thing is the rhythm is strange, right? You say the words, we praise you, Christ, you expect it to be, we praise you, Christ. That's normal, but that's subverted here. It's, we praise you, Christ. And as the phrase goes on, the rhythms get drawn out. Your cross has made us one. Gives a nice kind of finality to it, but on the whole, a little strange. So I had to ask Bertha, what on earth was she thinking with suggesting this hymn? I have no clue.
It is one of the most bizarre, perplexing things I've come across ever in the history of the Red Hymnal. So
I'm wondering if what you find bizarre about it is what I find bizarre about it. basically what it came down to was I really liked the text. Again, especially for everything that's going on now with the shelter in place, with all of the more than justifiable unrest and the protests about, excessive police force and, the deaths of so many people. And it's Pride Month. And I just look at the text and I was like, yeah, this is really great. Tumbling walls, opening fisted minds. And I think that phrase in particular was one that Arlen had once said something about, like, that tight, in German, when they talk about like ruling strongly, I think the phrase is Faustregel. And that's exactly what it is. It's like iron fisted, so opening fisted minds, and, the text was just great. And I thought, shoot, it's 7 verses long.
It is 7 verses long.
Yeah, and we try to respect the text and not omit verses and stuff. So I kind of like, but then I was actually kind of surprised when I paid attention to the dates on it. It's like mid 20th century. What? And actually, I guess the text and this tune came together later, like around about when I was in high school. But the weirdness, I personally don't feel that there's a great segue between the verses and the refrain. And I don't know if as a musician you feel the same thing, or if you're like, oh no, it's there, here it is, and you can explain that to us. But it's always seemed kind of jarring. And when I hummed the tune to Lars, he goes, oh yeah, that one. And he kind of had that same kind of, yeah, it's weird because you're singing along, and it's almost like a big MGM movie kind of score, the way it, praise the, like I could hear the trumpet sounding and everything, right? Very dramatic. And then it's like, clunk, we praise you, Christ. And it's like, what? It just, for me, it doesn't really seem to flow. But I'm sure that there's a musical reason for it.
I actually don't think there's an issue with the segue into the refrain. What I find most bizarre about it is the refrain itself.
Yeah.
And I guess what you're talking about, they're going for that trumpet kind of quality. It's written as if it's for a trumpet and not for a human voice. With those leaps, da, 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 but jumping at the end.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre to me.
So, Bertha always has a good reason for picking these things. We're not going to question it immediately. But there's 7 verses in the hymn, and at least we don't have to do all 7 verses. That would be ridiculous. Oh, I'm getting a call from our friend Marty Schaefer. Hi, Marty.
Hello, Daniel. Yeah, this is Marty. We were talking about cutting hymns, changing verses around, and so on. Maybe just a friendly reminder from me. I think it's really important to sing it in the way it was written. For one thing, unless you can talk to the poet and say, how about this change? You really shouldn't do it. And there are an awful lot of poets you can't talk to. So that's sort of where I'm at. Somebody said to me once that to change verses is to do violence to the poet's intentions. Now that may sound very strong, but I believe it. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Marty.
Okay, we're going to do all 7 verses because we can't do violence. So after talking with Bertha and embracing the weirdness of this, I actually have come to have a strange affection for this text and for its unconventional musical style. The unconvention, the brassy, heavy, pesante trumpetness of it is the point. This is why our hymn planning discussions are so important. We share our ideas and disagreements and very often come out with a new perspective that we didn't have before. Also, I think I was somewhat colored with the one recording I found of this, which didn't excite me very much. After being inspired by Bertha's explanation, I reapproached my take on this, adding an improvised trumpet introduction that fully embraced this brassy call to action that tumbles walls and opens fisted minds. After all, it was trumpets that toppled the walls of Jericho. Maybe today it will be trumpets that inspire us to topple the walls that divide us today.